The stranger in the mist. The sky was dark. Thick gray clouds covered the stars. A soft wind moved through the strange purple trees, and a cold mist rolled across the ground like a ghost. Then something fell from the sky. A burning ship crashed into the edge of the forest. Smoke rose into the air. Birds flew away. The ground shook. Out of the wreckage came a man. His name was Daniel Reeve. He wore a torn spacesuit, his helmet cracked, blood on his forehead. But he was alive. Daniel looked around. This wasn't Earth. It wasn't any place he had seen before. The plants glowed faintly. The air smelled strange, like iron and flowers. His communicator was dead. No signal. No help coming. But Daniel didn't panic. He had been through worse. He picked up his emergency pack and started walking through the mist, trying to find shelter or someone. Anyone. After an hour, he saw lights in the distance. Faint, warm lights, like lanterns. He followed them. They led him to a hidden valley, surrounded by large stones and trees. In the center was a small village, built from wood, metal, and pieces of old tech. The houses looked rough, but they were alive with movement. Strange figures moved through the mist, not human, but not like any alien Daniel had seen either. They had soft green skin, big dark eyes, and thin limbs. Some had patterns on their skin, like glowing lines. As Daniel stepped closer, the villagers saw him. They froze. Children ran inside. Adults stood still, watching him with wide eyes. They didn't speak. They didn't move. Only one small girl stood her ground. She looked no older than 7. Her eyes were large and gold, glowing softly in the dim light. Her face was round, almost human-like. Her hair was silver and fell to her shoulders. She stared at Daniel, unblinking. Daniel raised his hands. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. "I crashed. I need help." Still, no one moved. Then, an old alien woman stepped out from one of the houses. Her back was bent, and she leaned on a wooden staff. Her eyes were sharp and deep green. She wore a long cloak made of vines and soft cloth. She walked slowly toward Daniel, passing the little girl. The girl didn't move. The old woman looked at Daniel closely. She circled him once, as if trying to remember something. Then she turned her eyes to the girl. The village was silent. The wind stopped. And then the woman said, in clear, slow words, "That's your father." The words hit Daniel like a punch. He looked down at the girl. She looked up at him. Her face didn't change, but something behind her eyes flickered. Shock, fear, maybe something more. She didn't speak. Daniel blinked. What? What did she say? The old woman didn't answer. She turned and walked back into the mist. Daniel dropped to one knee. "Hey," he said to the girl, his voice soft. "Is that true? Do you know me?" The girl didn't answer, but her hands trembled. The other villagers slowly began to move again, whispering to each other. Their eyes stayed on Daniel and the girl. Some looked afraid, others angry. A few looked sad. Daniel was confused. What is this place? He asked no one in particular. Why did she say that? The girl finally spoke, her voice small like a breeze. "My name is Lyra." He nodded. "Lyra, that's a nice name." She looked at the necklace around her neck. It had a silver piece of metal hanging from it. Daniel leaned closer. It was a broken tag, a human military dog tag. His eyes widened. He reached out slowly. "Can I see that?" Lyra hesitated. Then she took it off and gave it to him. Daniel turned it over. His breath caught in his throat. It had a name. S. Reeve. His last name. His sister's name. He looked at the girl again. "Where did you get this?" She shook her head. "It was my mother's. She gave it to me before she died." Daniel sat back, stunned. His mind was racing. His sister had gone missing 10 years ago on a deep space mission. No one ever found her ship. Could this child, be connected to her. Could she be his niece, or something more? He didn't know what was real anymore. And the girl, Lyra, looked at him like she wanted to ask something too. But she stayed silent. Then, a loud sound echoed through the sky. Daniel turned fast. In the distance, a ship was landing. Not a rescue ship. Not friendly. Earth soldiers. Daniel stood, heart pounding. Why were they here? And what did they want with Lyra? Secrets in her eyes. The engines roared above the village. Dark clouds opened, and the shadow of a ship passed over the glowing trees. It wasn't large, but it was fast, sharp-edged, and painted in black and gray. The symbol on its side was clear. The Earth Alliance Military. Daniel's heart dropped. He knew that mark. He had worn it once. He turned back to the girl, Lyra, who stood quietly with the broken dog tag still in her hand. The wind tugged at her silver hair, but she didn't flinch. Her golden eyes were staring at the ship. No fear, no panic. Just stillness. Too much stillness for a child. Daniel grabbed her hand. We have to go. Now. Lyra looked at him, her voice calm. They're not here for you. What? They're here for me. Before Daniel could ask more, the villagers began to move. Fast. The old woman from before shouted something in their alien tongue, and the others obeyed without question. Children were pulled into huts. Fires were put out. Tech was buried under leaves and sand. In seconds, the peaceful village turned into a ghost town. Daniel and Lyra followed the elder back into her home, a small round hut made of old starship metal and wood. Inside, glowing stones gave off dim blue light. Symbols were carved into the walls, and in the center sat a low table with old books and strange tools. The old woman sat slowly and looked up at Daniel. You need answers, she said. Yes, all of them, Daniel replied. Why did you say I'm her father? What is this place? And why are Earth soldiers chasing the little girl? The woman's eyes were tired, but steady. Because she is not just a little girl. She motioned to Lyra, who stood silently beside the door, eyes still locked on the sky. She is something new. Daniel sat down, trying to keep calm. New? What do you mean? The woman touched the dog tag. You had a sister. She came here. Not by choice. Her ship was taken. Her crew captured. Daniel nodded slowly. I know. We thought they were all dead. She wasn't dead, the woman said. She was used. By humans. For a secret project. Daniel leaned forward, voice low. What kind of project? A breeding one. The woman said, voice heavy. They wanted to mix human and alien blood. They called it Project Harmony. But there was no harmony in what they did. They used your sister's body to create something they could control. A child. A weapon. Daniel turned to Lyra, his chest tightening. She didn't look like a weapon. She looked like a child trying not to cry. But in her eyes, there was something. Ancient. Knowing. I found your sister, the woman said. She escaped, but she was dying. She gave birth here. She gave me the child. She told me one name. Daniel's voice cracked. What name? Yours. Daniel's breath caught. She said, if I die, find Daniel Reeve. Tell him this is his family now. For a long time, no one spoke. The hut was quiet. The only sound the hum of the Earth ship outside. Lyra finally stepped forward. Her voice was soft. I always knew I was different. I can hear people when they lie. I can feel their thoughts when they're close, but it hurts when there's too much noise. Daniel looked at her gently. That's why you looked at me like that. You were reading me. She nodded. You weren't afraid. You were just broken inside. Daniel smiled sadly. You're not wrong. Suddenly, a deep voice came through a loudspeaker outside. This is Commander Graves of the Earth Alliance. We know the hybrid child is here. Turn her over. No one needs to get hurt. Daniel's blood went cold. The woman stood up, fierce. They will not take her. Not again. Daniel stood too. They'll burn the village if we don't act. Lyra walked over and took Daniel's hand. I'll go with you, she said. Daniel shook his head. No, never. But the girl's voice changed. It was strong now. You don't understand. I have to go, because they're not just looking for me. Daniel frowned. Then what are they looking for? The girl looked him in the eyes, gold glowing brighter. They're looking for the thing my mother left inside me. A chill passed through Daniel. Before he could speak again, the walls of the hut began to shake. The Earth soldiers had landed. Boots hit the ground. Voices shouted in the alien language, ordering people to stand down. The old woman turned to Daniel. Take her through the tunnel under the floor. I will buy you time. Daniel hesitated. You'll be killed. She smiled. I've lived long enough. Protect the girl. Find the truth. Lyra pulled Daniel toward a hidden hatch under a rug. He opened it, and together they climbed down into the darkness. Above them, footsteps entered the hut. Daniel looked at Lyra as they crawled through the tunnel. She whispered, There's more you don't know. What more? She stopped, turned to him, and said, I saw your father, in my dreams. Daniel froze. My father is dead. Lyra shook her head. No, he's not. The experiment files. The tunnel was cold and narrow. Daniel moved slowly, crawling behind Lyra. The dirt scraped his hands, and the air smelled like damp earth and old metal. But he didn't care. Behind them, soldiers shouted, guns loaded. The village was no longer safe. Ahead, a faint light glowed. Lyra looked back at him. This way. There's a place. No one goes there. Daniel followed, heart pounding. They emerged into a hidden cave beneath the valley. The walls sparkled with blue crystal veins. At the center was an old, rusted earth pod, half buried in stone, covered in dust. Daniel stopped. That's a research pod. Class 3. From the old war days. Lyra nodded. It crashed before I was born. My mother told me to never go near it. Then why now? Because it's calling me. Daniel didn't know what that meant, but he stepped forward, brushing dust from the pod's hatch. The Earth Alliance symbol was clear. Below it was a warning label. Kila sci-fi, pro-Geekseat harmony. Daniel's hands froze. He stared at the name. He remembered it. Back on Earth, in the military academy, there were whispers. The Black Project. Illegal. Dangerous. Hidden from public eyes. Some said it involved human-alien DNA merging. Others said it was about creating hybrids with powers. But no one ever confirmed it. Daniel placed his hand on the control panel. To his shock, it lit up. VEE. Welcome, Captain Daniel Reeve, said a cold robotic voice. Authorization recognized. Lyra stepped back. It knows you. The hatch opened with a hiss. Inside was a chair, cracked screens, and a small data cube still glowing with power. Daniel pulled the cube free. It was labeled VIDEO Log 17, DR, Sarah Reeve. His sister. Hands shaking, Daniel placed the cube into a holo-reader embedded in the wall. The screen came alive, and his breath caught. She appeared, his sister, alive in the recording. Hair messy, lab coat dirty, face pale, but eyes sharp, focused. She spoke. If you're watching this, then I'm dead. Or worse, this place isn't safe. I was part of a mistake, a terrible one. Daniel leaned in. Lyra stood silently beside him, her small hands clenched. Sarah continued. They said they wanted peace, a way to bring humans and aliens together. But they didn't want peace. They wanted control. They wanted weapons that looked like children. Children with minds they could shape, hearts they could break. She looked down, eyes wet. I let them take my DNA. I thought I could guide the project. But then they brought in others. Alien volunteers, they said. But they weren't volunteers. They were prisoners. Test subjects. I met one. A female from the Nyrene race. She was kind, gentle, intelligent. Daniel's heart raced. Nyrene. That was Lyra's race. Sarah looked back into the camera. She trusted me, and I failed her. They used her body to grow the child. Lyra, a girl born with power and fear. But she wasn't a mistake. She was beautiful, curious, pure. Lyra stepped forward, eyes wide. She said my name. Daniel nodded. She meant you. Sarah's voice cracked. I escaped with the mother. We ran. We found this planet. The old ship crashed, but we survived for a while. I promised I'd protect them, but the mother was too weak. She died. And She closed her eyes. I wasn't strong enough, but maybe my brother will be. Daniel, if you're alive, she's your family now. She carries our blood. She carries something else too. Daniel's chest tightened. Sarah finished with a whisper. She's not the weapon. She's the key. The key to something old. Something the Earth Alliance fears. The recording ended. Silence filled the cave. Daniel sat back against the wall, eyes burning. Lyra knelt beside him. She loved me. Daniel nodded slowly. Yes, she loved you. But she left. She didn't want to. She gave everything to keep you safe. Lyra looked down. A tear slid down her cheek. It sparkled like silver. Daniel looked at the pot again. If she said you're the key, then we need to find out what you unlock. Suddenly, a loud explosion echoed above them. The ground shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Daniel stood. They found the cave entrance. Lyra turned to the crystal wall. She reached out and touched the glowing blue stone. A low hum filled the air. The crystals lit up brighter, then formed a shape. A map, hidden beneath the surface. Daniel stepped closer. What is that? Lyra didn't answer. Her voice was different now. Distant, like she wasn't just a child. This is where they hid the vault. The place where the first DNA was taken. Where they kept the source. Daniel asked, what source? She looked at him, eyes glowing gold. The part that doesn't belong to either race. Daniel's heart stopped. You mean, there's a third origin? Lyra nodded. Something older. Not human. Not alien. Something buried. Another explosion shook the cave. The soldiers were coming fast. Daniel grabbed the holocube and looked at the glowing map. We're running out of time. Can you lead us there? Lyra didn't hesitate. Yes, but once we go, everything changes. Daniel looked at her, this strange child born of pain and secrets, and whispered, then let it change. The hunt begins. The sound of boots echoed through the cave. Sharp voices shouted orders. Lights flashed against the cave walls. Dust rained from the ceiling with every step. The Earth Alliance soldiers were closing in. Daniel held Lyra close, heart pounding in his chest. He looked at the glowing map still shining on the crystal wall. It pulsed gently, like it was alive. Is there another way out? He whispered. Lyra nodded. Yes, behind the wall. She placed her palm on the crystal again. Her golden eyes glowed brighter than before. The humming sound grew louder. Then, a part of the wall, smooth as glass, melted open, revealing a narrow tunnel. Daniel stared. How are you doing that? I don't know, Lyra said. It just listens to me. Daniel didn't ask more. There was no time. He took her hand, and together, they slipped into the tunnel. The wall closed behind them, just as a squad of soldiers entered the cave. Too late. The tunnel was narrow and sloped downward. It twisted through stone and crystal, lit only by soft blue veins in the rock. It felt old, ancient, but untouched for years. Daniel and Lyra walked in silence for a while. Finally, Daniel asked, Lyra, you said they're not just after you. You said you have something inside you. She nodded. My mother told me, before she died. She said I wasn't born normal, that I carry something old, something not from this galaxy. Daniel frowned. What does that mean? Lyra stopped walking. I see things in my dreams. Symbols, places I've never been, faces I don't know. But also, your father. Daniel looked at her sharply. My father died when I was a kid. His ship was lost. Lyra stared at him. But I saw him. He was inside a machine. Sleeping. Like frozen. Daniel's voice dropped. Stasis. He'd heard rumors of long-forgotten labs where scientists were locked in time for secret research. Could it be? Before he could ask more, they'd reached the tunnel's end. A round metal door stood before them. It was covered in vines, glowing symbols, and more crystals. The air around it felt thick, heavy. Lyra stepped forward, raising her hand. But Daniel pulled her back. Wait, let me check it first. He moved slowly, inspecting the door. It wasn't just old alien tech. It was a mix of both human and alien machines, fused together in ways he didn't understand. He found an interface panel. When he touched it, it lit up. A voice came through a speaker. Genetic match confirmed. Hybrid subject recognized. Vault access granted. The door slid open. Inside was darkness and silence. They stepped in. The vault was massive. It stretched far underground, with smooth black walls and pillars of crystal light. Strange machines stood silent, like statues. In the center, there was a glass pod hovering above the ground. Inside it was a man. Daniel walked forward slowly. His legs felt heavy. His eyes refused to believe. But it was him. His father. Older, yes, but unmistakable. Gray hair, strong face, a scar on his jaw Daniel remembered from old pictures. Dad? Daniel whispered. Lyra stood beside the pod. He's alive. I can feel his mind. It's weak, but there. Daniel turned to a console nearby. It was covered in layers of dust. He brushed it clean and found a power switch. Click. The machines hummed to life. The pod glowed. Then, a message appeared on the screen. To my son, Daniel Reeve. His father's voice. Daniel froze. The voice continued. If you're seeing this, then the world we knew is gone, and the truth is ready. I was part of Project Harmony, but not to make weapons. I found something deeper, something buried beneath all life in this galaxy, something ancient. Images began to appear on the screen. Star maps, DNA strands, alien ruins. Lyra is not just a child. She is the bridge, the missing piece, the final key to a signal, left by something not from here. Something watching. Daniel felt the weight of the words hit him. Lyra sat quietly, staring at the pod. They tried to stop me. They locked me here. But my memories, they live in her, in the child. You must protect her, Daniel. She will change everything. The message ended. Daniel looked at the pod, then at Lyra. My father's memories, they're inside you. She nodded. I don't know how, but they come to me when I sleep. Suddenly, a loud boom shook the vault. They weren't safe anymore. Above ground, Commander Graves stood at the edge of the now empty cave. He was tall, gray-eyed, and cold. A soldier ran up. We found a heat trail. Leading underground, 2 bodies, 1 adult human, 1 hybrid. Graves smiled. Good, that's exactly who we're here for. He turned to his troops. Set charges. We bring the whole vault down if we have to. But we're not leaving without that girl. Back in the vault, Daniel grabbed Lyra's hand again. We have to go. Now. Lyra stared at the pod. I don't want to leave him. Daniel looked at her. We'll come back, I promise. But if they get you, this will all be lost. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. As they turned to run, she whispered something Daniel almost didn't hear. They don't just want to catch me. They want to use me, to wake something else. Bloodlines. The tunnels behind the vault trembled. Dust rained from the ceiling. Somewhere far above, the Earth soldiers were placing charges. The walls groaned like they remembered pain, as if they feared what was about to happen. Daniel held Lyra's hand tightly as they ran through the winding underground path, guided only by the faint glow from the crystals in the rock. The silence between them was heavy, but not empty. It was full of questions neither of them could yet ask. After what felt like hours, they reached a quiet chamber. It was smaller than the vault, but different, older. The walls were covered in carvings, smooth like glass, strange figures, glowing symbols, circles within circles. It felt more like a temple than a lab. Lyra stepped ahead. Her fingers ran along the wall. "I've seen these in my dreams," she whispered. Daniel approached. "What are they?" She traced a symbol of a double spiral, then turned to him. "I don't know, but they feel like me, like inside my bones." Daniel examined the walls too. The writing wasn't just alien, it was unknown, not from any known race in the galaxy. The figures in the carvings had elongated limbs, eyes like stars, and shapes floating behind them, like wings made of light. "This isn't Nerine," Daniel said. "And it's not human either." Lyra looked at him. "It's before both." Daniel felt a chill. Before. Lyra walked toward the center of the chamber, where a crystal pillar stood. It pulsed slowly with light. She placed her hand on it. The light flared. Daniel jumped back, shielding his eyes. Then a voice filled the chamber, not from a speaker, but from inside their minds. "Blood. Shared. Split. Returned." Daniel gritted his teeth. What was that? Lyra's eyes glowed gold. She didn't speak at first. Then, slowly, she said, "It's speaking to me. It's welcoming me." Suddenly, the pillar projected a vision, a holographic memory made of light and sound. Daniel watched in awe. A great star system appeared, full of planets. Then war. Fire. Screaming. Races fighting. Humans. Nerine and others. All manipulated by something else. From the darkness, a figure rose. It was tall, with no face, made of shadow and light. It reached out and planted something into the worlds below. A seed. Lyra gasped. "That's the source. That's what I carry." Daniel turned to her. "You mean, your powers, your dreams, they come from this?" Lyra nodded. "My mother told me once that I wasn't born by accident, that I was chosen, not by the humans, not by the Nerine, but by something older." Daniel felt dizzy. "This whole time, Earth thought you were a weapon, but you're a message." Lyra looked down, and now they want to silence it. Suddenly, the pillar flickered again, revealing another image. A young man, barely 20, standing beside Sarah Reeve. Both wore lab suits, both smiling. Daniel leaned closer. "That's me. That's from 15 years ago." Lyra said nothing. But then, the image changed. It showed another man, Daniel's father. He wasn't working alone. He stood with 3 alien elders and a creature that looked almost like a Nerine, but different, older, taller, with glowing eyes and 4 arms. "That's not from this world," Daniel whispered. The voice returned. He learned. He helped. Then they erased him. Lyra's eyes filled with tears. "You're not just like me," she said to Daniel. "You carry it too." Daniel blinked. "What?" She stepped closer. "Not fully, but some of it. That's why the vault opened for you. That's why the machines listened." Daniel backed away. "I'm not special. I'm just a soldier." "No," she said. "You're more. Your father found the bloodline. He followed it. He passed it to you." Daniel stared at her, stunned. "That means you're not just my protector," Lyra whispered. "You're part of the same signal. We're connected." Before Daniel could respond, the chamber shook violently. Alarms echoed through the tunnels. Then came the voice of Commander Graves, cold and sharp, through a loudspeaker placed somewhere far above. "Subject 117 has been located. You have one chance to surrender, Daniel Reeve. Turn over the hybrid girl, or we collapse the tunnels." Daniel cursed. "They tracked us." Lyra stared at the crystal pillar. Her voice was soft. "They'll never stop. Not until they bury the truth. We need to show them." Daniel nodded. "Then we don't run. We take the truth to the surface." He turned to the pillar. "Is there anything here we can use? Something to help us fight?" The voice inside their heads responded again. "Memory, light, power, but only if joined." Lyra stepped forward, reaching out to Daniel. "Take my hand." He hesitated. She looked into his eyes. "You don't have to be afraid. We were meant to finish this together." He took her hand. The moment their skin touched, the entire chamber flared with light. Symbols lit up across the walls. The ceiling opened to the sky above, a tunnel straight through rock and roots, letting sunlight pour into the ancient place. Then the light gathered into their joined hands and entered them both. Daniel gasped. He saw flashes, visions of history, pain, creation, and power. He felt strength in his blood, something waking up, something that had always been quiet, until now. Lyra's hair floated around her, golden eyes shining like stars. And for the first time, Daniel felt it too. The connection. He wasn't just her guardian. He was her anchor. Together, they were the bridge. The vault of memory. The sky above them cracked open. A beam of sunlight poured down through the stone shaft created by the crystal vault. Dust danced in the light, and the carvings on the walls shimmered with a golden glow. Daniel Reeve stood still, eyes wide. His hand was still holding Lyra's, and inside his chest, something had changed. For the first time in his life, Daniel felt like he was part of something bigger than war, bigger than Earth, bigger than everything he had ever believed. He wasn't just a soldier. He was a link in a chain that stretched across time. Lyra let go of his hand gently. Her golden eyes dimmed, but her face was calm, strong. "It's done," she said softly. "The vault has given us what it could." Daniel took a breath. "What did it give us?" "Memories," she whispered, "not just from your father, but from something older. A signal, a warning." Daniel looked up at the open tunnel leading to the surface. He could hear the hum of ships above, soldiers moving. The Earth Alliance was preparing for the final strike. What kind of warning? Lyra pointed to the carvings now glowing behind them. One showed the hybrid child standing between two burning worlds. One world looked like Earth. The other, a jagged alien planet surrounded by darkness. Beneath the child's feet was a symbol. The spiral they had seen before. Daniel read the message carved below it, now glowing in simple alien script. She must choose. One world dies, one world lives, or both will fall. Daniel frowned. "They think you're a weapon, but this says you're a judge." Lyra nodded slowly. "The source inside me. It's not just power, it's decision. It reacts to choice. Fear, trust, kindness, hate." Daniel's voice was dry. "You're telling me the fate of two worlds depends on how you're treated?" "Yes." Daniel looked away, fists clenched. "And Earth chose to hunt you." Lyra didn't respond. She didn't need to. He already knew. They climbed out of the vault through the tunnel of light, emerging near the edge of the forest. The village below was in flames. The Earth soldiers had attacked. Smoke rose into the sky, and burning leaves fell like black snow. Daniel's face hardened. They didn't even try to talk. They just came for her. Lyra stood beside him, calm but quiet. Her eyes flicked from fire to shadow. She was watching, listening to thoughts. "They're still here," she said, Commander Graves is waiting. Daniel turned. For what? For us, she answered. They began moving through the trees, staying low. Daniel's old training returned, silent steps, quick glances, hand on the pulse rifle he had taken from a fallen soldier in the tunnels. As they neared the ruins of the village, Daniel spotted him. Commander Graves. Tall, cold eyes, a gray metal implant on the side of his head. He stood in the middle of the clearing, surrounded by a dozen soldiers in black armor. And behind him, the old woman from the village, alive, but bound, kneeling. Daniel's stomach turned. Graves spoke loud enough for everyone to hear. Daniel Reeve, I know you're here. The girl is not a child. She's a virus, a mistake that should have been erased years ago. He stepped forward, slow and proud. This is your final warning. Turn her over, and we leave this place. Fight us, and we wipe out every trace of this valley. Lyra stepped out of the trees. Daniel froze. Lyra, wait. But she walked forward, head high, eyes glowing. The soldiers raised their weapons. Graves held up his hand. No, let her come. Daniel rushed to her side, standing between her and the guns. She's not what you think, he shouted. She's not a weapon. She's a test. For us. Graves sneered. You think this is a moral story, Reeve. This is about power. Control. We lost control, and we're here to take it back. Then he looked at Lyra. You were designed in a lab, engineered to obey. Somewhere in your code you know that. Deep down, you know we made you. Lyra's voice was calm. I was made by fear, but I survived by love. The soldiers hesitated. Something about her voice made them feel cold. Graves raised his pistol. You're not a god, girl. Lyra stepped forward. No, but I remember who tried to be. She raised her hand. And for the first time, the vault of memory reacted. A pulse shot from her fingers into the ground. The earth shook. Crystal pillars rose from the soil. Trees lit up with glowing veins. Old machines hidden beneath the ground woke after centuries of silence. And the soldiers, they screamed, not in pain, but in confusion. Their weapons powered down. Their helmets glitched. Their minds filled with static. Then, silence. Lyra looked at Graves. He tried to shoot her, but the bullet never reached. It stopped midair, frozen, then melted into light. Graves fell to his knees, gasping. Daniel stood beside Lyra, speechless. What did you do? She looked at him, eyes glowing brighter than ever. I remembered who I am. Daniel looked around. The Earth Alliance had fallen, without blood, only truth. And now, the world was watching. The choice, the fire was gone. The smoke had cleared. The battlefield was quiet, but the silence wasn't empty. It was sacred, like the world itself was holding its breath. Lyra stood in the center of the clearing, her silver hair drifting in the breeze. Her golden eyes no longer glowed with power, but with clarity. Her body shook slightly, like her strength was finally fading. Daniel Reeve stood beside her, gun lowered, eyes on the Earth soldiers. They weren't fighting anymore. Their weapons had failed. Their commander, Graves, lay unconscious at Lyra's feet. The others knelt, heads down, not in fear, but in confusion. Some even in awe. No one had told them what she really was. They thought she was a tool, a threat. Now they saw something else. A child who had been hunted, a girl born from two worlds, never given a chance to choose her place. Until now. The old alien woman, her hands still tied, was helped up by villagers who had come out of hiding. Her eyes met Lyra's, and she gave a small, proud nod. You remembered the path, she whispered. Lyra walked over and gently helped untie her. Daniel stepped up. You okay? The old woman smiled. She's more than okay. She passed the test. Daniel looked confused. What test? The woman looked around the valley. The test that none of us passed long ago. The test of power and how we use it. Lyra's voice was quiet. I was made to be used, but I chose not to be. Daniel looked at her. So what happens now? That's when the sky changed. Above them, a light opened, like a tear in the air itself. Soft, swirling silver light. Silent, but deep, like it watched. Everyone stopped and looked up. A shape formed in the light. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't a creature. It was memory. A living map of stars and time, voices from 100 worlds, floating as one. Then came a message. Not in words, but in knowing. Lyra understood it first. She stepped forward and spoke for it. They were never trying to destroy us. They were trying to wake us. Daniel asked, Who? She pointed to the sky. The ones before. The ones who left the source. They knew we would fight over it. They knew we would fear it. So they'd made one final key. A soul who could carry it without being broken. Daniel stared at her. You. Lyra nodded slowly. But it wasn't just about power. It was about choice. They wanted to see what I would do when I had the power to hurt. And didn't. The sky pulsed in response, and the villagers all knelt. One soldier removed his helmet. A young man, barely more than a recruit. He looked at Lyra. We didn't know. We were told you were a monster. Lyra shook her head gently. I'm just a girl who was never allowed to be one. Daniel put a hand on her shoulder. You don't have to carry it alone anymore. Then, Lyra turned to him with tearful eyes. There's one last choice. Daniel frowned. What do you mean? She looked at the light in the sky. I can go with them. Into the memory. The source. I'll become part of it. They'll take me far. And I'll be safe. I'll never be hunted again. But I won't come back. Daniel's breath caught. And the other choice. Lyra looked down. I stay, and I live a life. I grow. I laugh. But I'll always be in danger. Always. Daniel's voice cracked. What do you want? Lyra looked around the valley. At the villagers, the trees, the sky. Then she looked at him. I want to live. Daniel smiled through wet eyes. Then we'll protect you. All of us. She stepped forward, raised her hand toward the sky. The light responded, not with anger, but peace. It slowly faded, folding back into the stars. Weeks passed. The Earth Alliance was forced to explain what happened. Not even they could cover it up anymore. They said it was a misunderstood operation. They lied. But those who were there knew the truth. They saw the girl who stopped an army with kindness. They saw the man who stood beside her. Now, in a quiet part of the galaxy, Lyra lives in a hidden place. She learns. She laughs. Sometimes at night, she dreams of stars whispering her name. Daniel is always nearby. Her guardian, her family. Not by blood, but by choice. Because in the end, it wasn't about DNA. It was about who you become when the world tries to break you, and what you choose when it doesn't.